Hello, everyone. It's awesome to present in front of such a great crowd. Um, Today, I will talk about how we proactively hunt for malicious infrastructure, leveraging graph neural networks. And this is a project led by Nabil, who is the mastermind behind this. And it's a collaboration across multiple projects at Palo Alto Networks. So I will start with some motivation. Why would we use graph neural networks? And give you some examples of some of the observations we leverage here. And then we'll discuss our methodology, which consists of two main parts. First is to construct a knowledge graph that we can use to run a graph AI algorithm that can detect malicious domains proactively. And then I will present some case studies of how it works in practice. So a lot of the detection capabilities and a lot of the detectors and analyzers detect after an attack was launched, and they are very reactive. So our goal would be not just to increase the number of IOCs we can find and improve the precision, so have less false positives, but we would like to decrease this time, not just after the attack, but hopefully detect these IOCs before the attack. And real intuition here is that attackers need to set up their infrastructure, and they need to do reconnaissance before they can actually launch their attack. So this gives us crumbs of information that we can leverage. And some of these observations that I talked about includes that they often rotate their infrastructure. So they have many domain names, they acquire many domains, IPs, and other kind of IOCs. But what we find is they often don't use them at the same time. They use some of them, they rest them, they use them again. They use them different ways. So this rotation can be leveraged. They also automate many of their hosting activities. They register domains in bulk, they set up certificates automatically, and so on. And they also reuse and share infrastructure among different groups. This is for convenience and economical reasons. So, and what I said before, they set up their infrastructure before the attack usually, so that gives us a window. And it's not just about proactive detection, but also this active investigation of like the active attacks. They usually, very often we find they uncover only parts of the attack infrastructure. So this helps us to uncover the rest of the infrastructure. And when they want to do more attacks, we can proactively defend users and even protect some of the patient zero victims. So I will give you now some examples of what I mean. And this is a graph of prolific Puma domains, which are the yellow nodes, and their IP addresses, which are the blue nodes. And basically what prolific Puma does is basically a malicious URL shortening service where they keep rotating these domain names they use and making it really hard to detect them, but moreover, other cybercriminal groups or their other activities behind these URL shortening services. But we see that it gives us a very well-connected graph. So this graph approach can help us to uncover more of these malicious domains. Then we have seen this phishing campaign impersonating USPS. And here the yellow nodes are malicious domains and pink nodes are the TLS certificate fingerprints. And we see these multi-domain certificates. That gives us a very strong connection among these domain names. In this other one, it's here yellow nodes are Gamaredon IP addresses and pink node are their SSH self-signed fingerprint. And Gamaredon is, you might all know that it's a Russian APT group targeting Ukrainian entities. But they like to use fast fluxing, so change the IP addresses very fast behind the domain names. And these are some of these IPs. And while they automatically do this, they did the self-signed certificates. They're all the same, so we can connect them. And you would think like, okay, but why do we need a graph neural network here? We just know these are malicious, right? But the main point here, and many of the following examples where we have this very strong association between nodes, is that you can imagine this as part of a much larger graph. And this much larger graph, there are many weak associations that these IPs, for example, connect to C2 domains, and it helps us identify those. And those C2 domains use other IPs and helps us identify those. So these very strong small graph components I will show you. We'll do that. Oh, I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
Yeah, my slides are too strong. Something like that. Thank you. That's important. Let me know if something like that happens. So this is another example. It's a prolific phishing kit. Here, yellow are malicious domain, pink are the phishing kit, and we see that many domains use this phishing kit. And again, this can help us to further expand. And some other, and this phishing kit example, for example, targets sites like Apple or PayPal. And then this task create ransomware. We see many URLs distributing the files with the same hash, right? So these are just very strong information we can get. And there are some more Gamaredon examples here where malicious. I don't know why is it doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I go back to Windows. So, so basically, we see that these Gamaredon samples connect to different C2 domains. So these are all just many examples of like really strong connections we can see. But previously I showed you some weaker one, and I will dive into this. So next I will talk about okay, what we do about this. And just to give you some idea of like how we do this is we start with a small seed of malicious domains. And then we identify these associations. There are some strong, some weak associations. And we define a toxic neighborhood. And it will all I will build it up, so it will make a lot of sense how it works after a couple of slides. But this high toxicity neighborhood is basically things that have many quite strong relationships, have many malicious nodes, but they might have benign nodes also. So we cannot say here that, okay, these are all malicious, right? So I enrich this node with all kinds of features, and the graph neural network will find similar domains that it will say it's malicious. And the key idea for all of these, and the difference compared to a classical machine learning or graph-based method, that it uses both the graph topology and the features that we enrich these nodes with. So a very high-level overview of our pipeline is that we start with attacker-created domain names and newly released ones that are malicious. And then we expand to this toxic neighborhood based on co-hosting. And I will go, because previously I said, or should have said, that this is a weak relationship. So maybe it doesn't work that well. So we'll work on that. And then we enrich this graph and make a knowledge graph that we can use in turn to train a graph neural network that can output malicious domains. And in the next step, I will go in these steps and explain you how they work. So the expansion part is that we take a set of seed malicious domains. It's important for us that we use attacker-owned domains, because compromised domains often relate to a lot of like other benign domain names because they're benign, they were just compromised. And then we get their hosting IPs, but we only look at recent hosting IPs to make this association stronger, and we exclude CDN and web hosting IP addresses. And then we take their hosted domains, recently hosted domains, and take their IPs, and we keep expanding, right? We found that we only expand to 3 layers, because after that it dilutes the toxic neighborhood too much. But one interesting thing, if, for example, we use this to find domain names, we want to stop at an IP layer when we expand it to more IP addresses, because it helps us connect the graph better, and therefore makes our graph neural network detect more malicious domains, but also more precisely by making more connections in this graph. So how the graph AI-based part works is over just introductions. So we can have different nodes. And for example, domains, their subdomains, IP addresses, file hashes, certificate fingerprints. Edges can be anything. It could be domain-subdomain relationship, which IP was used for this domain name, if we have seen a communication to from a domain name, or what certificates it used. And for label data, we use some in-house malicious domain names that we have developed over the year. And for benign, we use popular Trunco top 100,000 domains, and also some in-house benign domains that we know are benign. And we enrich all these nodes with a bunch of different set of features. We use lexical features like whether the domains have brand or suspicious keywords or how many hyphens they have. So very simple features, right? Then we do hosting features like number of IPs, the hosting duration, the age of the domains, then how much time it takes for it to expire. Like a domain that was registered for many years is less likely to malicious. And also we look at if it's privacy protected registration. And you would think like, we know that if something is privacy protected, it doesn't mean malicious, right? A lot of benign domains do that. But really, if it's not privacy protected, it's much less likely to be malicious. So really, this is the opposite way why these kind of features are important often. And we used certificate features like the type of the certificate, the issuer, all kind of other information from different fields that can be useful due to the automation by attackers. IP features would be number of domains hosted on the IPs or their ASN, country code, and so on. And we also use some content-based features. We crawl these domains and we look at simple things again, like the number of iframes. Is there a web form? We kind of want to profile these domains with these features. And in the graph construction, we take the toxic neighborhood, the domains and the IPs we discussed before, right? They're all connected, but we create more connections. We create nodes like the /24 subnet of an IP, the ASN of an IP. We create them as new nodes and connect them to the IPs. That way, we make the whole graph more connected, more densely connected, improving our classifier's performance. Then we enrich this graph with the features mentioned before, lexical, hosting, who is certificate features. Then we inject the label data, and then we train a graph neural network. We use a two-layer graph sage graph neural network. Then that can, in this graph, can predict for unknown domains whether they are malicious or benign. And our results show the following. We compared 5 different approaches. The first approach is, what if we just use these features and use random forest and normal machine learning? What if we use shallow embeddings? We tried 2 versions, and the shallow embeddings, it's like if you would only look at the graph features, the topology of the graph. And the other one is just simply combining these features and the shallow embedding and running a random forest on top of it. How does that work? And then we compare it to our graph neural network approach, and we find that our approach has 95% precision and 92% recall. And most of our application needs a higher precision because it's still a lot of false positives. So we can tune the threshold, and on the right you can see that we can have a over 99.9% precision with still over 50% recall. So it can be a very precise classifier. And on this plot, what you see is a low 2-dimensional representation of the graph neural network's embedding. And what we see is that purple nodes here are malicious and yellow are benign. Oh, it's died again. Great. Good. And what we see a clear separation here. And what it signals us in this low dimensional representation is that our classifier works well. It separates the 2 classes very well. So now I showed you like how it works with label data and what our approach is, but we haven't seen it in practice yet. So I will give you a couple of examples of that too. So we go back to Gamaredon, and this is just like a quick plot of how they start with spear phishing, and if people click and download and there are a bunch of things happening, then there will be a script installed that will communicate with a C2 domain. It's broken again. You guys don't even realize that because it's not obvious, but it was broken. I have to look back. And but communicate with this C2 domain, and our goal is to identify these domains. We started with 100 seed domains that we built out a toxic neighborhood and found thousands of new Gamaredon C2 domains. But in this example for visualization, I will give you a smaller part of the graph with 7 C2 domains and the 3 IPs they are connected to. And when we expand it, we see hundreds of domain names, where here the gray nodes are basically the unknown domains, yellow are the seed domains, and blue are the IP addresses. And our graph neural network identified 40 of them to be malicious. This is our high confidence detections. And later 34 were marked as malicious by other vendors. In our other case study, I will talk about phishing campaign targeting USPS and 12 other national postal services. And their attack vector, which we start with, is smishing. Here we started with 450 seed domain that were using about 400 unique IP addresses. And our detector found 5,000 high confidence malicious domains in 3 months. And 30% of them were later flagged malicious by others. And here again, I give you a smaller example. This is these 3 domains, the yellow nodes, are Ireland's National Postal Services, targeting Ireland's National Postal Service, mpost.com. And we see after expansion that we see dozens of new domains targeting this postal service. And most of them, the vast majority of them, were marked as malicious by our detector. All right. And in summary, what we find is threat actors, by doing automation, setting up their infrastructure, they leave traces behind. For example, when registering domains, creating certificates, and so on. And we showed how we can pivot on this information to find these malicious domains before they are weaponized by first building this knowledge graph that I showed you, and then training a graph neural network on top of it. And we showed 2 examples how it works in practice. And over the last 2 months, we uncovered tens of thousands of malicious domains using this approach. So thank you, and feel free to reach out to us at these email addresses or connect via LinkedIn if you have questions after the conference, or if you just want to talk about any of this research or related research. We're always happy to discuss.